Do you ever feel like your cosplay needs an animal companion or prop? Well, this may be the tutorial for you. These ingredients are all really easy to get, relatively affordable, and mostly safe for use. Please, however, still be careful and take precautions when crafting. This process has 3 steps. The first step is to sculpt. I did mine on a head cast, but if you don't have one, you can just buy a plastic head on Amazon or a similar store, or even a really round bowl. I covered the head in plastic wrap and then started sculpting using heated up monster clay. My inspo for this was one of the frogs on the heads of the demons in Good Omens, but pull up a reference photo for whatever you are creating. This process is pretty self-explanatory. You just keep adding and removing. The wonderful thing about monster clay is that it can be reheated and reused, so if you make a mistake, you can just carve away and start again. Because I knew this was going to go on my head, I wanted the frog to be really nice and flat and kind of sit snug on my head. As you see here, I made it a really floppy little creature. It's really helpful to look at which tools you have lying around or little utensils that you can use in smoothing out or creating some interesting textures. I think this little butt might be my favorite part of the entire creature. Using isopropyl alcohol, I smoothed out the surface before adding some additional texture. Be careful to do this in a well-ventilated area. Now on to the next part, casting. Unfortunately, you will need to ruin your perfect sculpture by casting it in something like gypsum or cement. I used Ultra Cal 30 for this, applying a really light layer at first to get into all the details and slowly building it up. For additional stability, I added a layer of Plaster of Paris as well. And then you pray and hope that it comes off. If you apply cling wrap, this should come off really easily. Using a heat gun or a hair dryer, you can now start to soften the clay and start scooping it out slowly but surely. I just kept repeating this process until I got all of the little clay out. I used isopropyl alcohol to get the last layer off. Now comes the fun part. You want to make a gelatin mix using these ratios. The honey adds some color and stability. This is very similar to making jello at home and is completely safe. Once it is all combined, you want to heat it up in 10-second intervals in the microwave, taking care not to overheat it. Once all the granules are dissolved, you can add some powder pigment for color. I added a green. I added some baking powder as well, which made the mixture really fluffy and kind of fuzzy. And then I realized I wanted it even more green, so you can keep adjusting the color as you need. Divide these into containers and then put them in the freezer to set completely. In the meantime, you can prepare your mold by spraying it with olive oil and coating it fully. When you're ready to cast, you can take the little discs out from the freezer and heat them up in the microwave in intervals. Using a spoon, I started scooping them into the little crevices like the eyes and the feet first. Make sure to twirl it around and make sure that it goes into all the little spaces that you need it. I then flipped my head cast upside down and made sure that the contact and the seal is perfect. After letting it sit overnight, the next morning you can carefully unmold your little creature. Because of the olive oil, this should come off really easily, but use little spoons or tools if you need to. Using isopropyl alcohol, you can remove some of the excess oil off your creature. And if you had some spillover, you can trim this off using a scissor. We're almost done. On to the last part, which is painting. You can use various different kinds of paint, however, because the texture is so flesh-like, alcohol-activated paint is the best option for this. Start with light layers and work your way up. I used a mix of light whites, browns, yellows, and greens. I made the ice nice and yellow with some orange highlights, and then obviously also added the little pupils. And there you have it. I used this for a swamp siren look for Halloween last year, but the possibilities are endless and I have so many ideas of cute little critters that I want to create.